of the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 5. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Jnanam Timirandhasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadammayam Dati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavangsha Shri Rupa Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitangsha. He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye वंशकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपासिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभो नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौरभक्तवृंद Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Okay. Chapter 5 of Bhagavad Gita. So, Krishna in chapter 3 spoke about Karma Yoga, right? Action and Krishna consciousness. Then in chapter 4, he talked about Jnana Yoga, transcendental knowledge. And we see the Gita is so much a conversation because after he's done discussing chapter 4, then again Arjuna starts to have a doubt. Oh, Krishna here is giving me a way out. He's saying, cultivate knowledge, become a jnani. So maybe I don't need to fight because there's two paths and I can take this path also. There's a path of karma yoga, there's a path of jnana yoga. So maybe I can skip the path of karma yoga and take the path of jnana yoga. So chapter 5 starts with a question from Arjuna, as most chapters do. And it's a genuine question of a genuine disciple. And Prabhupada mentions in always so many places, he says that a disciple means that a disciple must ask questions to clarify doubts. A disciple is obedient, but they're not blindly following. They clarify their mind, and then once it is clear, then they follow. But asking questions is in a sincere mood of genuinely trying to understand and practice is part of Bhakti Yoga. It is part of the quality of a good disciple. And Arjuna is clarifying. He's also telling Krishna at times his own thoughts and asking for clarification. But then when Krishna is telling him something, then he is accepting it also and following it. Meaning that if it's something that Krishna is sharing that is difficult for him, yet he understands is the right course of action, he's also not just asking for asking's sake. So this is the first verse, very beautiful. Arjuna vacha sannyasam karmanam Krishna punaryogam cha shangsasi yat shreya etayor ekam tanme bruhi sunishchitam. Arjuna said, "O Krishna, first of all, you asked me to renounce work, and then again you recommend work with devotion. Now will you kindly tell me definitely which of the two is more beneficial? Work in devotion or renunciation of work?" This is always a question in our mind, right? Should I just renounce, especially in younger years? People say, should I just become a lifelong brahmachari, or should I get married and serve Krishna? What is the better thing to do? Although that is a slightly different question, because in either case, we are still working for Krishna. So that's more of a question of renunciation rather than renunciation of work. But it's of a similar mood that, okay, should I just give up and go to the forest, or should I fight this battle? What is more beneficial? So in this first section, text 1 through 6, Krishna now speaks about how karma yoga is easier than renouncing work. They both lead to the same goal, Krishna says, but one is more effective and easier than the other. So Arjuna again asks whether renouncing work is superior to working with detachment. Krishna replies, both are equal in the sense that both are means to the same goal. He emphasizes working with detachment as easier and superior. So for those who are embodied, those who have a body, to sit and meditate, on those of us on the call, 23 people on the call, if we were asked to go to the forest and just live in a hut and sit on a rock for the whole day, and even if we were provided everything, our food and lodging, everything, how many of us would agree to do that? We have so many desires, we have creativity, aspirations, we want to, express ourselves in different ways. How many of us would do that? And even though it's easier, how many of us would do that? We wouldn't do that because we're embodied. So therefore, it's not easier. Working or being engaged in some work is much easier and much more natural. Just like there was a yogi who did not speak for 40 years. And so Srila Prabhupada's disciples were very impressed by him. So they went to Srila Prabhupada and said, this yogi has not spoken for 40 years. 40 years. I mean, that's a long time. It's just a number for us. But imagine year after year, you don't say anything, just mauna for 40 years. And Prabhupada, when he heard that, he was not so impressed. And he said, why Krishna gave him a mouth? Why is he not speaking? What is wrong? Krishna gave him the mouth to speak. And therefore, because that organ is there, the desire is there to speak. So keeping mona is nice. It is better than speaking nonsense, Prabhupada said. It is nice. It is definitely an accomplishment. But even better is speaking about Krishna and serving Krishna and using that sense for the service of Krishna. Of course, our tradition also says no prajalpa. So still we reduce the speaking and we don't speak about nonsensical things. Well, that's the main thing, and that reduces it. But the principle is that we avoid speaking about things other than Krishna. That is real mona. And what helps in that is speaking a lot about Krishna, right? The more we speak about Krishna, the less we will speak about other things. In the purport to text 5, Prabhupada says, detachment from matter and attachment to Krishna are one and the same. So that is the point, right? So ultimately, it's not possible not to speak. Therefore, speaking about Krishna is the same as Mona, not speaking material things. But you cannot be detached from matter and not attached to Krishna. And you cannot be truly attached to Krishna and still be attached to matter. They, you know, they go ill together. Prabhupada says material enjoyment and spiritual life go ill together. You actually cannot do both. You are either, if you are engaging in material enjoyment, then the spiritual life must be less. Because when we see the sun, then we see ourselves, then we see everything. And when we don't see the sun, then we also don't see ourselves and we don't see everything. So if we are seeing Krishna, then we have to be detached. And if we're not seeing Krishna, then we cannot be attached to Krishna. We have to be attached to, if we're not seeing Krishna, we have to be attached to matter. So attachment must be there. That's the nature of the soul. Desire must be there. Activity must be there. And that's why Arjuna's proposal to renounce the world and go to the forest is impractical and unrealistic, because Krishna is saying you will again come out and fight, because it is your nature to be a fighter, a warrior. So better fight for the right cause, fight for me, because you will not be able to detach the world completely. It is only a show for some time. Therefore, Prabhupada says in the purport to text 2, jnana or knowledge that one is not this material body but spirit soul is not sufficient for liberation. So chapter 4 in of itself, just the part that we're not this body but we're the spirit soul, it's not sufficient for liberation. One has to act in the status of spirit soul. Otherwise, there's no escape from material bondage. So once understanding the knowledge of the soul, we have to act on that platform. Otherwise, there's no escape from material bondage. One should understand that factually, nothing belongs to anyone. Then where is the question of renunciation? One who knows that everything is Krishna's property is always situated in renunciation. Since everything belongs to Krishna, everything should be employed in the service of Krishna. Prabhupada is so powerful and to the point. When nothing belongs to us anyway, what is the question of renunciation? It's a farce. Real renunciation is that just knowing that to whom it belongs. It belongs to Krishna. So therefore, everything should be employed in Krishna's service, and employing everything in Krishna's service, that is real renunciation. That is real. Of course, here we need to be also careful because a devotee does renounce material things that are averse to Krishna. So although we have nothing to renounce, and true renunciation is using everything in Krishna's service, because we are still so materially entangled, and we were actually talking about this last night, because we still have so much attraction and attachment to this world, then Rupa Goswami says to be careful. We should not accumulate more than necessary. We should keep ourselves distant from material things, lavish things, expensive cars, expensive gold, jewelry. A devotee does not flash these things because though everything can be utilized in Krishna's service, we will most likely end up utilizing it for our service if we possess these things, right? So Srila Prabhupada, when he came, he would be taken from one place to the other in the most uh, expensive and luxurious car of the time. Sometimes it was a Bentley or a limousine. Devotees would arrange it for him because they loved him so much and because he was so transcendental. But for ourselves and for themselves, the devotees would not drive these vehicles. Why is that? Because in the liberated stage, one can use these things in Krishna's service, for their service, and not be attached and not become egoistical. But in the conditioned stage, we will become attached. And sometimes thinking that we won't be attached is pride. Or if we're truly detached, why should we get it for ourselves? Rather, we should engage that Lakshmi in Krishna's preaching service, right? To glorify the spiritual master and serve the spiritual master, a devotee arranges for things similar to like they arrange for Krishna. Uh, but for oneself, why should one do it? So therefore, we see even the Goswamis of Vrindavan, who are liberated souls, what did they do? Every night they're sleeping under a different tree. They possessed nothing. They had 2 loincloths, and they were simply engaged in chanting Krishna's holy name day and night. Sankhya Purvaka Nama Gana Natibi. Sankhya, by counting a number of rounds, 64 rounds minimum, they were chanting every single day, every single day. If they had a big enterprise or big business or a lot of material possessions, how would they have time to do this? So their full focus was simply on Krishna. So that's one risk that we have, and we have to be careful that we should not increase our material possessions like that. So in this chapter, Krishna says how Sankhya and Yoga, they lead to the same destination. Sankhya Yoga and Karma Yoga lead to the same destination. But of the two, Karma Yoga is easier. So what is Sankhya? And this is a big topic because people are like, well, Sankhya is like materialistic. Yes, there's a later Kapila who taught a materialistic Sankhya Yoga, but he was a later Kapila. He was not the real Kapil. He was a false Kapil. The real Kapil, we were actually just discussing yesterday in our Bhagavatam class that the real Kapil was an incarnation of Krishna. He was actually Krishna's own incarnation in a Satyavesh avatar. Actually, it seems as though he was actually a living being who was specifically empowered by Krishna to teach Sankhya Yoga. So he was sort of like Srila Prabhupada. Prabhupada's status, therefore, is so exalted, you see. We read in the Bhagavatam, Kapila, Prithu Maharaj. These were living beings, the Kumaras, Narada. These are living beings, like like us. But they have been empowered by Krishna to such a degree that they have the full power of attorney, the transcendental power of attorney from Krishna to act on his behalf, to represent him as an avatar, literally. And so Kapila Muni was like that. He was giving transcendental knowledge. That's just like Srila Prabhupada is flooding the world with transcendental knowledge. He gave this Sankhya system and taught it to the world, taught it to his mother Devahuti, and um, and that original Sankhya is theistic. It's actually the one of the core pillars of the Bhagavatam's philosophy. It is how we understand the world in relationship with Krishna. And the Bhagavatam has immense sections on Sankhya Yoga. So people say, oh, we are Vedantins. Yes, we are, but we also follow the philosophy of Sankhya as taught by Kapila Dev, the original one, the theistic Sankhya, and that forms the understanding of Krishna and this world and the relationship, and us and the relationship between the three. So 3 things, Ishvara, Jiva, and Jagat. There's 3 things in this world, the Lord, the living beings, and the world, which emanates from Krishna's Maya. So everything here is being shown. This is the Sankhya chart. You have the Lord. From the Lord, the jivas, the individual souls are produced, and Maya, Krishna's energy. Maya doesn't necessarily mean material energy. Maya just means energy. But then Maya has two parts. One is Vidya and Avidya. One side can liberate you. That's coming from Maya. See, Yoga Maya and Maya are the same actually. When Maya is connected in relation to Krishna, then it is Yoga Maya. When Maya is contacted in forgetfulness of Krishna, then it becomes Mahamaya. So how we approach Maya makes it Maya, Mahamaya, or Yoga Maya. So that is avidya and vidya, either with knowledge or with ignorance. And then Maya has, as the energy, has a third function, which is creative power. So in the context of the material world, in the spiritual world, Yoga Maya is a spiritual creative power with spiritual elements. But in the material world, Maya forms the material elements. So Maya turns into Prakriti. And Kala, even time, comes from Maya. Because Maya, the most literal meaning, the basic meaning is energy or power. So everything is Krishna's power, right? Everything in this world is from his Maya power. The jivas are also his power, but they're part and parcel of him. They're a different power than Maya. But everything else, other than the jivas, is ultimately emanating from Krishna's Maya. So you have Prakriti and you have Kala. You have the Swabhava and Karma of all the living beings. Very simple. So you have nature with the three gunas. You have time. You have the Swabhava or the nature that the jivas have cultivated in this world. Now notice this is the material Swabhava. So this is not the spiritual nature of the soul. This is the nature, the samskara that we are developing throughout our lives. We have a certain, swabhava, to be envious. So in our next life, we become a snake. It's not just karma. Karma means are we going to be a happy snake or a sad snake? But swabhava is the nature, or swabhava is one of to be very peaceful and happy and content. And we may come back as a cow, but then you can be a happy cow or a distressed cow. That is different. So you have the swabhava, and then you have the karma, the karmic reaction that is carried. These four things. Now, from Prakriti, when it develops more and on these, when Kala stirs Prakriti, the soup, then it becomes Mahatattva. Mahatattva is a combination of all the elements coming together. And within this Mahatattva, the souls are impregnated by Krishna's glance. Within Prakriti, they're impregnated, and then Mahatattva forms. And so in Mahatattva, there's also Chitta and Vasudeva. So Chitta can mean different things. It can refer to the soul. It can refer to consciousness, intelligence, and in this case, it is referring to the conscious element. And then we have, or maybe it's referring to the intelligence actually in this context, Chitta. And then we have Vasudeva. So this is the kind of the spiritual element, which is also present there. And then from the movement of this, then we have Ahankar, the false self forms. The Ahankar is the false self. And notice this Ahankar comes before anything in this world is manifest, which means that this Ahankar is our false self. And the false self comprises not just this body, which is the false self, but also the whole world, right? The world is our false self. I am, Mr. So-and-so living on such and such road, and this is my nation, and this is my world, and the whole world is our false self. It's not just that we identify with the body, we also identify with the house, we identify with the street, we identify with the nation. So what is this? This is all the ahankar. And Mahatattva, when it affects The chitta or the Vasudeva, it is the ahankar. It becomes the false self. And now I remember, okay, the predominating deity of Mahatattva is Vasudeva. That's what I was trying to remember. So that's why Vasudeva is mentioned here. And the chitta refers to the conscious element. So I was thinking, well, there's both things there. And similarly, the predominating deity of Ahankara is Sankarshan. Because Sankarshan is one who attracts. So then the soul becomes connected or drawn into the false self, the Ahankar. And once we are in the world of Ahankar, the false self, then you have, as I said, Maya is Gunamayi. Maya is composed of the three gunas. So you have the three gunas, which are actually energies. So here you're like, oh, well, where is it, the gunas? Well, it's right here. Jnana Shakti is the energy of knowledge, of illumination, that is sattva. Then you have Kriya Shakti. This is the energy of activity, that is rajas. And then you have Dravya Shakti. This is the activity of, um, we say ignorance, but it's not just ignorance, or it's not exactly ignorance. It is of kind of, what is it? Um, Immobility, stability, like dravya. So jnana is knowledge and upward movement. Kriya is passion, is like activity, and dravya is solidarity, those things. So you have the sattvika ahankar, you have rajasika ahankar, and you have tamasika ahankar. So sattvika ahankar, that's also ahankar, false self, that is related to what? To our mind and our intelligence. I am a great philosopher. I am a great scholar. Right? That is ahankar, but it is sattvika. And that forms the mind and the senses. And these senses are being controlled by these sense devatas. So actually, the mind is produced from the mode of goodness. And this is a very key thing. This is why Sankhya actually helps us in bhakti, because it shows us that this is the way the world is. And so this is how we break the maze. This is how we break the matrix and we come out of it. So the mind is produced from sattva gun. Actually, the buddhi or the intelligence is not produced from sattva gun. The mind is. We think in the Gita it says, control the mind with the intelligence. So intelligence should be mode of goodness, right? But no. And because the mind is produced from goodness, this is why the mind is the most important sense in our progress of devotional life. Because Savai Mana Krishna Padaravindayor, the Lord can manifest within the mind of a devotee. Rather, the intelligence is something that we need to use to come on the process of bhakti, but then we have to discard it at a certain point. The material intelligence has to be discarded, because love for Krishna isn't a calculative activity. It's not an activity we use with our intelligence. So that is, the buddhi is produced from rajas. It's the buddhi, intelligence, always figuring out how can I become more, this and that, more famous, more wealthy, more this. That's all the intelligence that actually agitates our mind. When the mind is distracted, it can help focus it. But ultimately, Krishna must be captured through the mind. And that's why it is born of sattva gun. And all of these sense devatas are born of sattva gun. Then buddhi and all of these senses are born of rajas. All the senses except for the mind. The eye, the ear, the nose, the tongue, the hands, the feet, the genitals, the anus. These 10 senses are produced, and the prana and the buddhi, the intelligence, is produced from rajas, passion. And then finally, the 5 elements of this world, earth, water, fire, air, ether, they're produced from ignorance, tamas. That's the world of matter. This is matter. Uh, that's why the world of material possessions is actually the basest world. Okay, I need this, I need that. In terms of physical things, is also ahankar. It's kind of the lower form of ahankar, and wanting, you could say, sensual things. Amazing musician, amazing singer, amazing this or that are rajasic ahankar or rajasic identifications, and then um, uh, thinking oneself, in terms of even kind of a materialistic uh, progress in religion or philosophy sometimes can be mode of goodness, which Prabhupada says is also binding. That is the highest, most subtle form of ahankar. So we go from subtle to gross. But through sattva, which is the most subtle, it's the easiest way out to go to the transcendental. So goodness is still not the goal, right? But what is transcendental? It is pure goodness, which means that it is a higher form of goodness. So therefore, the focus is always. Krishna says in the Gita, right? The highest thing in chapter 12 is fix your mind upon me. If you can do that, you've attained perfection. If you can't do that, then do this, and then do this, and then work for me, and then do this, and then do this, right? But why the fixing the mind? Because is the that is how we connect with Krishna. Or in other words, working for Krishna is ultimately meant to bring us to the point of fixing our mind upon Krishna. And in fixing our mind upon Krishna, naturally, we will do Krishna conscious activities because of this reason. Now, how to perform Nishkam Karma Yoga? So there's different forms of karma yoga. Karma yoga is there's action for Krishna consciousness. Sakam karma yoga is when we do karma yoga with desire. Sakam. Nishkam is when we do karma yoga without any desire, any personal desire for material advancement, but only desire for Krishna. One performing Nishkam karma yoga identifies neither with his body nor the activities that his body performs. By his detached actions, he is freed from the reactions of his activities. So one last thing I wanted to say on this chart, the reason I put this chart here is that many times people say, oh, Sankhya is so difficult, it's so complicated, and can't understand it. But actually, if you see it through this simple chart, it's actually so simple and it's so logical, right? So, so this is very helpful, and the Gita is also speaking about Sankhya Yoga. So Krishna wants us to understand it. It's Canto 3 of the Bhagavatam. Prabhupada told us to read all the cantos in order, so he wants us to understand it. So this is a very helpful tool, this little chart. You can see everything, how this is all set up. And yes, so now Nishkam Karma Yoga. So what's the purpose of Sankhya Yoga? The world is like an onion, right? It has so many coverings, and all these coverings are covering us in the middle. So by understanding these coverings, one can remove the coverings one after the other. And that's why the yogis, who are the Sankhya yogis, they one by one are saying, I'm not this. I'm not the physical elements, obviously, but I'm not that. I'm not my, sense of smell or sight or speech, not that. I'm not even my mind or my intelligence that I'm so acquainted with. I am an Atma. So therefore, then, Sankhya can help us to come to the platform of not identifying with this body. And then starting the positive process. So Sankhya is the you could say the process of negation, not this, not this. And then Karma Yoga is then, okay, acting on the platform of the soul. So neither with the body nor the activities. Remember, the world is also our ahankar. We also identify with our activities, not just with the body. By his detached actions, he is freed from the reactions of his activities. Just like sometimes in life, it's very hard to not accept to not be attached to our work and the accomplishments of our work, to not feel to feel that, I'm not the doer. It's very hard. But it's helping us that, well, we can do something wonderful and still feel that I'm not the doer, because one understands that even these activities, they're all in the material realm. And as a soul, I truly have no connection with these material activities. And it's only by the grace of Krishna and Prakriti that's managing everything that I'm able to fulfill anything or do anything. That brings detachment. Then we perform action for Krishna. And that type of detached action frees us from reactions. So here we go. That I think Sakam Karma Yoga is Karma Yoga, but Krishna 50% for you, 50% for me. Or Krishna 10% for you, 90% for me. And as we advance, the Sakam Karma Yoga becomes more and more for Krishna. We start with 10% for Krishna, 90% for me. Then it's like, well, actually, the service that I do for Krishna, that's the most pleasurable part of my week. Let me increase that. So we do 30% for Krishna, 70% for us. 40% for Krishna, 60%. Finally, we're like, well, everything for Krishna. Well, I need just a few things. So 90% for Krishna, 10% for me. Or I have just a few desires. Okay, but I'm attached to this particular, this thing. And then Krishna really works on us, gives us some real purification, distress, something. And he has to remove that final few percent. And then it's Nishkam Karma Yoga. But it's very difficult to come to this stage, working for Krishna without any fruit of desires. But the path to that is Sakam Karma Yoga. That's why the scriptures say regulate it. No sinful activity, right? Activity according to the scriptures, that is regulating it, and that makes us advance. Sudden renunciation doesn't make us advance, nor does sense enjoyment make us advanced. But regulating that sense enjoyment gradually makes us advanced. And that we can do. Anyone can do. Even a child can do. They can do some sacrifice for Krishna. They can regulate some degree. That, okay, I at least won't eat ice cream with eggs, or maybe even better, ice cream with chocolate or caffeine. But I will eat ice cream. Okay, it's not, not cooked by devotees, not fully prasadam, but I'll eat, but at least I'm regulating it. The sinful activities, four regulative principles are not being broken. So that helps us advance. And then that ice cream I'll offer to Krishna. That helps us advance more. And then once we become more advanced over time, we're like, oh, forget the ice cream that's cooked outside. Let me just make ice cream for Krishna. So Krishna becomes the center. And then we're like, okay, the ice cream taste is nice. I will take the prasad. Just like um mm, uh, just slipping in my mind. I know it so well. His name. The temple president of the Pune temple. Um, his name is slipping. He's famous preacher, youth preacher. Radhe Shyam Prabhu. Yes, Radhe Shyam Prabhu. So he's almost like a sannyasi. He's very, very advanced, very spiritually advanced person. And Radhe Shyam Prabhu, uh, he will intentionally um, avoid things that he likes eating. This is one of his qualities. Like if he likes the taste of a particular, like he enjoys a particular type of sabji or a particular thing, he intentionally would avoid eating those things because it's the practice. I mean, it's very high level, and that's what I'm saying. We don't imitate that, but naturally, our spiritual desires take us to that point. It comes of its own accord. So he will, because he wants to make sure that his only pleasure is Krishna, that his mind is not tricking him, trying to take pleasure with material things. Very hard to do. I mean, if we like something, we generally eat it more, right? I generally overeat. When there's pizza or something, then you eat more than normal. But he will intentionally avoid things that he likes to eat. And he'll eat what it's just like, food. simple things. And he'll eat like this little bit in the whole day. It's like shocked how he does it. It's the hardest thing to give up, right? Vacho vegam, manasakrodha vegam, the jiva vegam. The tongue is the hardest sense to conquer. But Nishkam Karma Yoga, I don't have any material desire for myself. The Goswamis, few drops of buttermilk every day. So that is working for Krishna without any fruitive desires. And that's the goal we're working towards. Then in section 13 to 16, Krishna speaks about the three doers. Very interesting point, because we say we are not the doer, but at the same time we have some role. We cannot say we're not completely the doer, because that means if we do something wrong, we are not responsible for it, right? If we say we're completely not the doer, then we can never punish a criminal, because the criminal is not the doer. So they must be a doer. But which doer are they? Doer number one is the living being who desires. So we cannot accomplish anything. That's why we don't take pride. We don't feel that I did something. Because actually we understand it is being fulfilled by Krishna. But where is the credit? The credit is that we desired. We could have desired to go to the bar, or we could have desired to offer some wonderful service to Krishna. We could desire to go and preach Krishna consciousness. Then it is fulfilled by Krishna. But the intensity of our desire and the effort which the desire leads to, that is our credit. That is our responsibility. We are responsible. We get the reaction because the living being is the initiator, and therefore ultimately gets the karma. Doer number two are the modes of material nature who carries out all the bodily activities. So if Krishna allows, then material nature will carry out. Even if we desire, if material nature does not cooperate with our desire, we will not be able to do it. Like we may desire to fly, and I may go on the roof of my house and say, I will flap my wings. And you see, because my desire is so strong, I will fly. But I will fall like a rock and hurt myself. Why? Because material nature will not cooperate with that desire. But if I have a desire to read some book, I can do that because it's part of my modes. And then finally, the ultimate desire, which could actually make us fly, but we have to be pretty advanced for that, is the super soul or Krishna, by whom activities are sanctioned. So these three doers, the ultimate sanctioner is Krishna, not a blade of grass moves without the Lord's desire. And the person who's responsible is the soul. And the element that's the instrument is material nature. So it's very helpful understanding that there's in any action, in any activity and its accomplishment, or in its effort, there are three doers. Section 517 to 20, liberation by focusing on and offering the results to the super soul. So now Krishna's getting, after understanding all the different levels and aspects of action and the doers and material nature, he's saying now focus on offering the results of our activities to Krishna. And this is how we gain liberation. So one who in knowledge fixes his consciousness on the super soul in devotion and remains equipoised attains liberation in the near future. So we were speaking of this again yesterday. Krishna says in the Gita, Mam anusmara yudhyacha. He says, fight, but fix your mind upon me. Mam anusmara, fight while remembering me. Fix your mind upon me and fight. So we forget sometimes the most important part, which is fixing our mind upon Krishna. And that's this famous verse of the Gita, which I think maybe you need to memorize. I don't remember, but it's nice to memorize. Vidya vinaya sampanne brahmane gavihastini shuni chaiva shrapakecha pandita samadarshina. The humble sages, by virtue of true knowledge, see with equal vision a learned and gentle Brahmana, a cow, an elephant, a dog, and a dog eater. And this is actually one reason why preaching is so nice, preaching Krishna consciousness, because it helps us enter into this consciousness of seeing everyone equally. When we go for book distribution or something, then we tend to judge people. Oh, this is a nice person. I'll approach this person. Oh, this people, they're like, they seem very closed and um, unpalatable to approach them. But then when we do approach them, we say, oh, wow, what an amazing person. Um, the person we think will take a book doesn't take a book, and the person we don't think they will take a book. So we start to realize that no, everyone is a soul. Their external manifestation, their external bodily form is just that. It's external. But internally, everyone is searching for Krishna. And someone can be so sweet. We should not judge a man by his clothes, right? Similarly, we should not judge them by their body. And that's why the truly learned person does not make distinction between an elephant, a dog, a cow. What to speak of distinctions among human beings? A truly learned person has equal vision. Another way we, as in our spiritual life, when we helps us in this, is that we tend to judge, or you can say, judgment is there to some degree, but make friends and enemies amongst people. And we think, oh, this person is our friend, he's so nice. But then we realize after 6 months, they switch. They sometimes change around. The person you think is like your friend, they start to become odd, or they become averse to you. And the person we think, oh, they're averse to us or this or that, they become friendly to us. So equal vision is that also, not seeing people as friends and enemies, higher and lower, because they change. Similarly, the dog today is the dog, but then his soul may reincarnate into the body of a Brahmana. So therefore, a one who's truly virtuous in knowledge does not fundamentally, for the practical sense, they may discriminate between a tiger and a cow, right? But they fundamentally do not discriminate or think low of anyone, because they know it is just the body. Their soul is the same. They're all, just see, the super soul. Krishna is present next to each person. So every person is so dear to them. So dear to them, right? That is the true wisdom or knowledge. Such a liberated person is not attracted to material sense pleasure, but is always in trance, enjoying the pleasure within. In this way, the self-realized person enjoys unlimited happiness, for he concentrates on the Supreme. So when we develop this consciousness, it's not even for the benefit of others, that, well, then, they will but it's for our benefit. If we can develop that vision, then we can always be in a state of trance, not worried, not concerned, not feeling averse. Those feelings of aversion disturb our mind and heart. But we can enjoy the pleasure within. In this way, the self-realized person enjoys unlimited happiness, for he concentrates on the Supreme. He doesn't concentrate on who's good and bad outside, but his focus is on Krishna, the Supreme. His focus is so much on the ultimate goal that the immediate challenges of this world, The pains, pleasures, the good and the bad, the envious and the friendly, don't bother him because they're so much absorbed, they're so full with a higher spiritual purpose. Just like you may have noticed, even in material life, this is the case. If you have a very strong ambition or very big task in front of you, you're on a marathon, the other things in people don't bother you because you're so focused yourself. You have to accomplish this. But as soon as we have time, I noticed this, like if you have some free time, like doing our chanting, unfortunately, that's when our mind bothers us the most. And we think about this person, the things that people do bother us the most. Because that's when the mind has time. It's not concentrated on the supreme. That's when it's empty. An intelligent person does not take part in the sources of misery, which are due to contact with the material senses. O son of Kunti, such pleasures have a beginning and an end, and so the wise man does not delight in them. So nice. It's not that the devotee is neglecting the world, but rather they see this is a source of misery. Why should I invest in the sources of misery? This pleasure will have a beginning and end. However great it is, it will end. But I want the eternal pleasure that does not end. And that's why, again, the mind of a devotee is focused on the goal. It is focused on Krishna. And ultimately, that is the only solution. Because I was just listening a tape from Prabhupada, and he said that the world is designed in such a way that even you are doing nothing, you're just peaceful, but a volcano will erupt. It is designed in such a way. He says, it is designed in such a way because that is the way a prison is designed. A prison is designed to give suffering. If a person goes to a prison and says, it's very odd, why aren't there soft beds here? And why aren't there like fragrances and, nice foods? Why do they give just dry bread? Then it's a question, but it's really not an intelligent question. Well, obviously, you're in a prison house. So Prabhupada says, if we find distress in this world, how can we be surprised? Why should we be surprised? It is meant to be a prison house. It is meant to correct us. It is a correctional institution. So there must be distress in this world. Padam padam yat vipadam. At every step, everything is fine. You're doing fine. We walk out, and we get rear-ended. Some accident happens. We walk out and we sprain our leg, or we bite our tongue while we're eating. We are not doing anything wrong, yet these things will come because of the nature of this world. So the only solution, there's no other solution, is simply to concentrate on the Supreme, on Krishna, and in that way overcome them. Text 25, those who are beyond the dualities that arise from doubts, whose minds are engaged within, who are always busy, they are busy also, working for the welfare of all living beings, and who are free from all sins, achieve liberation in the Supreme. Those are beyond the dualities that arise from doubts, whose minds are engaged within, who are always busy for the welfare of all. And freed from all sins, they achieve liberation. And so this is such a big theme in the Gita. We find again and again. So it must be something true. Like Krishna only has 700 verses. And in that he says it in every chapter, literally, in some chapters a few times, is rising beyond dualities. Happiness, distress, good and bad, friends and enemies, honor and dishonor. Because we see that, in fact, these are the things that are the biggest obstacles in our spiritual progress. Right? Giving up meat is not that hard. Chanting Hare Krishna is not that hard. What makes it hard are the dualities of this world and those distractions and temptations that absorb us and then stop us from advancing in Krishna consciousness. When we have some challenge with a devotee or even non-devotee, but when we have some problem, then actually we should see it as it is it is it's a activity of Maya, because that is actually Krishna's way of distracting us through something very small, distracting us from something very big. Maya's way of doing that. And Krishna is trying to tell us, as our friend, that that your Krishna consciousness is far beyond this. And so Krishna consciousness means our greatest service in some ways is to keep ourselves unaffected and focused on our service and our connection with Krishna and the devotees, and ignore the problems or try to solve them, but not be pulled back by them. Only a person who is fully in Krishna consciousness can be said to be engaged in welfare work for all living entities. When a person is actually in the knowledge that Krishna is the fountainhead of everything, then when he acts in that spirit, he acts for everything. He acts for everyone. Acts for everyone. The sufferings of humanity are due to forgetfulness of Krishna as a supreme enjoyer, the supreme proprietor, and the supreme friend. Okay, again, this is the point. Prabhupada says it so perfectly. The sufferings of humanity, which means the sufferings of a devotee also, are due to forgetfulness of Krishna. We forgot Krishna. We are forgetting Krishna. That's why the sufferings that we are experiencing become so important in our life. But if we remember Krishna, then we remember him as a supreme enjoyer, the supreme proprietor, and the supreme friend. And I just, reflecting on this recently, that Krishna is a supreme enjoyer. So you get the most pleasure and bliss with him. And Krishna is a supreme proprietor. So if we want something, we're not getting it, it's because Krishna has not given it to us. And so that's why the devotee simply takes shelter of Krishna, first and foremost, takes shelter of Krishna, because he is the proprietor. If we are meant to have it, it may be acceptance in a certain social circle, it may be acceptance in a certain job, it may be the attaining of some benefit, material thing, or a spiritual benefit also, then Krishna will give it to us, because it's not the other people or persons who are stopping us. Krishna is the supreme proprietor. We don't have that faith. Therefore, we are going to others, or we are blaming others for our not getting something. But Krishna is fully in control. They can give it. If Krishna wants it, he will give it. And he's also the supreme friend. Friendships are the biggest thing in our life. We don't have a friend, all these things. We feel that when Krishna becomes small in our life, because we must understand Krishna is our supreme friend. So there's a wonderful example of Dhruva Maharaj, where he has this immense desire to enjoy the kingdom, right? To get a first class, fine kingdom. And this is a completely material desire. But in one purport and verse, Prabhupada writes it so well. He says how the positive quality of Dhruva Maharaj was that he wanted that kingdom. He really wanted it. And it's a material thing. But he wanted it by honest means. This is an actual purport. I can show you the paragraph. He said, Dhruva Maharaj wanted the kingdom by honest means. He wanted the kingdom if Krishna gave him the kingdom. And that's why he went to the forest to pray to Krishna, that Krishna, please give me the kingdom. And he kept doing austerities until Krishna was pleased and he gave him the kingdom. And that is the way a devotee thinks, that I will get anything in my life, I'll get whatever I like in my life, but I'll only get it if Krishna gives it to me. Dhruva Maharaj didn't try to snatch it away from his brother, from his father. He didn't try to fight with them. But rather, he said, Krishna is the ultimate proprietor. My father can die of a heart attack. My brother can also die of a heart attack. And then I will get the kingdom. So Krishna is the proprietor of everything. So why I should fight with them? It is Krishna who is not giving it to me because I have not pleased him. And this is the instruction he receives from his mother. His mother says that Brahma became Lord Brahma because he pleased the Lord. Your great grandfather, Swayambhuva Manu, became Manu because he pleased the Lord. Your father became the emperor of the world because he pleased the Lord. So similarly, if you also please the Lord, you can get whatever you desire. And Prabhupada therefore writes here, therefore, to act to revive this consciousness within the entire human society is the highest welfare work. One cannot be engaged in such first-class welfare work without being liberated in the Supreme. This is very significant. This is why I brought this this purport is so special. Because he's saying that is the highest work. But then Prabhupada puts a condition to it. He says we actually cannot be engaged in that preaching work until we ourselves are liberated. And that's why practice and preaching, they must go together. We must practice first and foremost. The highest realization, Prabhupada says, is saving oneself. Because one knows that if you save yourself, you will save everyone. But if you don't save yourself, you won't be saved and no one else will be saved. So one must be liberated. And of course, the process of preaching itself helps us advance. But we cannot ignore our personal Krishna consciousness in the name of preaching. A Krishna conscious person has no doubt about the supremacy of Krishna. He has no doubt because he is completely freed from all sins. This is a state of divine love. Wow, look at this. This is the state of divine love. This sentence I italicized because it's very significant. It says, he has no doubt because he is completely freed from all sins. So sinful activity is what brings doubt in our Krishna consciousness. Sinful activity are things that make it very difficult to understand the philosophy of Krishna consciousness. And we will see this in our life, that if we give up sinful activities, things become very clear, what to do, how to act, how to get through the difficult states in life. But as long as we are performing the 4 sins, meat eating, illicit sex, gambling, intoxication, it's very difficult. Even as devotees, if we're not practicing the principles to understand Krishna, we'll keep getting doubts. So freedom from doubts is not just an intellectual exercise. It is a lifestyle. If our life is pure, our mind will be pure. If our mind is pure, then we will understand everything clearly. And then Prabhupada says in this connection, that is a state of divine love. Love is not a sentimental thing. If we are freed from sins, then we will be loving Krishna. If we are practicing a life of not performing sinful activities, that is love. That is love. Because then we are actually doing what Krishna wants, and that is love. When we actually do what the other person wants, that's a true expression of love. And then the last verse, the peace formula. This is so this whole chapter, you see, the theme is it's helping us. It's our friend, right? Gita, Krishna is our friend. Therefore, Gita is our friend. And we see this 5th chapter. It's giving us a way of how to be peaceful. So in this final text, Prabhupada tells us the peace formula. A person in full Krishna consciousness, full consciousness of Krishna, attains liberation from the pangs of material miseries. What's our invitation? Why should we be a devotee? Because actually it gives us freedom from the pangs of material miseries. There's so much miseries. So this is the last verse, 529. Bhoktaram yagya tapasam sarvaloka maheshwaram suhridam sarvabhutanam gyatva mam shantim richati. So Krishna tells us that if we want to be happy in this world, we must understand three things. And we actually discuss these three things, so that's why it is. If we deeply understand and internalize three things, we will always be happy. The first one is Bhoktaram Yagyatapasam, that Krishna is actually the beneficiary of all sacrifices and austerities, meaning that Krishna is the ultimate enjoyer of everything. So we are unhappy because we are missing out on enjoyment. But if we understand Krishna is the enjoyer, and Krishna is the one who gives all enjoyment, we'll be fully happy. The second thing is Sarvaloka Maheshwaram. Krishna is the master of everyone. He is the Lord of everyone. How does that give us perfect peace? Because then we realize that I am not the master. So if things aren't going my way, well, they weren't supposed to from the beginning. Because it's Krishna's the master, like we just discussed. All I can do is pray to Krishna. But if Krishna doesn't want it to happen that way, it will not happen that way. And the last one is Suhridam Sarvabhutana. That Krishna is a well-wisher. Krishna Suhridam. Hridam means heart. Suhridam means very close to the heart, meaning not just friend, very dear friend of every living being. So this is a very important understanding because we often get the first two. Okay, I'm not the enjoyer. We're doing spiritual life means pleasing Krishna. We also understand I'm not the controller. Krishna is in charge. I have to serve his will. But this third one, even in spiritual life, we keep this false illusion that I am the friend of every living being. That actually, I'm a devotee, I'm so nice, so everyone should like me. And if they don't like me, there's a problem. And that gives us great anxiety. Like when we go to any temple, someone doesn't like us, or the management, doesn't appreciate us, or something like this happens, right? So we become distressed by that. But here Krishna is saying that remember that I am the friend of all living beings, of every living being. So we are not the friend of every living being. And that's why Prabhupada says, someone in this world will not like us. Some battle we will lose. But that is okay. Because we're not meant to be in that position. Krishna is a friend. And because Krishna is a friend, therefore, we are Krishna's dearest friend. And Krishna is our dearest friend. So everyone will not be our friend. Because everyone is Krishna's friend. But Krishna is my dearest friend. And because Krishna is everyone's friend, I am a friend to them by connecting them with Krishna. Not necessarily connecting them with me, but connecting them with Krishna. And that's the real preacher also, right? The one who connects everyone with Krishna. They may connect with us or they may not. And that's the part that's hard because we preach and then we say, well, they should be connected with me. They should like me. But sometimes they don't. But the devotee takes satisfaction in, okay, their Krishna consciousness is going well. They're connected with Krishna, doesn't matter. As long as I did my service, Krishna's pleased, and I got Krishna's mercy, and they're getting Krishna's mercy. So this is the peace formula. Prabhupada said that if every night we read this verse and we go to sleep, we will always be happy. We will never feel lonely. We will always have our friend. And we have to remind ourselves every day of these three things, and that leads to perfect peace. So I will stop here. We have just 10 minutes. Unfortunately, we have a hard stop at 8:30. I have one. So we will end then. Thank you, everyone. Neeraj, Prabhu?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. So I have a fundamental question based on the verse fifth,
Mm,
detachment from material world and attachment to Krishna.
mm,
So we hear in
mm,
day-to-day lectures that we should always remember Krishna. We should
mm,
never forget Krishna.
mm,
If detachment and attachment is one and the same,
mm.
how about remembering and not forgetting? Is this same or is that different? And why do we say this distinctly every time? Always remember, never forget.
Yes. So, because see, detachment is not from Krishna. Detachment is from the material world. So, a detachment from the material world means attachment to Krishna. Attachment to Krishna, always remembering Krishna, means that we will never forget Krishna because we will not be attached to material things. So, attachment to Krishna means detachment from material things. So, that's actually what you brought up is very nice. It's a nice way of putting the same thing in different words.
Okay. Thank you.
Mhm. Yes, Prabhu. Thank you. Thank you very much. Rupa Goswami says that there's only one rule and one regulation. Always remember Krishna. That's a rule. The regulations never forget Krishna. And all other rules and regulations are meant simply to serve that one rule and regulation, to bring us to that point.
Okay. I did not know about the Rup Goswami's lecture. Thank you for sharing that.
Thank you, Prabhu. Nice comment. Lavanya Mataji?
Hare Krishna Prabhu, Dandavat
Hare
Pranam, all
Krishna.
goes to Srila Prabhupada. Hare Krishna Prabhu. So, what I would, I ended up, analyzing, not analyzing, I conclude my inference is actually from this chapter that without the doer number two,
Mm,
we'll be in the spiritual world. And when we are in this material world, we
mm,
have to minimize the doer number, dependence on doer number two. Is that it, Prabhuji?
mm. Yes, that's actually a nice practical realization from those three things that in the material world, we need to depend on material number two because Prakriti is still Krishna's energy.
Mm.
And we have a limiting factor in some ways because the material body is like a bargain. It's a bad bargain, Prabhupada said. We're trying to serve Krishna with with an instrument that's not very good in serving Krishna, which is our body, because our body gives us so much trouble, or the senses are there and this and that. So yes, and as we come more and more on the spiritual platform, more and more doer number three takes a bigger role, and that's the spiritual consciousness, like you're saying, not necessarily the spiritual world, but the spiritual consciousness, even in the material world, is then, like a liberated, it is so like Srila Prabhupada. In their case, Krishna was directly acting in their life. All things were being arranged by Krishna, not by Prakriti. So spiritual consciousness means that we will come to the point where we are connected with doer number three
Mm.
and less with doer number two, which is Prakriti. And material consciousness and material world means we're connected with doer number two.
Okay. Thank you, Prabhu. And if it's okay, just a small, another, question I have is about the renunciation. If actually Karma Yoga is the is the working with renunciation, right?
Mm,
That actually which Krishna wants Arjuna to do,
mm,
and that is what we have to follow, right?
yes,
Doing
yes.
karma with renunciation. But if that is actually appropriate, Prabhu, then why are we still seeing, some, sannyas ashram? That,
Mm,
we have so many Maharaj, even Prabhupada took sannyas
yes, yes.
ashram, right? So why is it actually, being followed when everybody can do the preaching and
Mm,
everything in this
yes,
varnashrama? I mean,
yes.
why are we still going into sannyas ashram?
So that's why the sannyasi is also working for Krishna. That's why work and devotion is never given up. What they're renouncing, sannyas means they're renouncing material work and material activities. So the sannyas ashram is a commitment that, like we were saying, fully attached to Krishna and detachment from matter are one and the same thing. So it's a commitment that I will be detached from matter. But even that is hard because sometimes we are detached from the material objects, but we're still attached to um, to as a sannyasi we can still be attached to our pride, our ego,
Mm.
and that's why like Durvasa Muni and things are renounced, but sometimes they have some obstacles. But real sannyas, or what sannyas means, what the practice is, and why one takes that is, you know, manas, vacha, and karma, mind, body, and words, all three things I have dedicated to Krishna.
Okay.
But sannyasi is also working. That's why Prabhupada, Krishna actually says this, right? One who does not work for Krishna is not a sannyasi, or even a sannyasi cannot give up. That verse, acts of sacrifice, charity, and penance.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you for the clarification. It's like, we are not giving up on everything we do, but we are still working. That's it. We are not, just give up only because, we want to enjoy the life or,
Yeah.
our connection or on tapasya, but we just have to do something to enjoy this, spiritual connection.
Yes. We're giving up material work and accepting spiritual work. Yes.
Okay.
Thank you. Nice point. Yes, thank you. Pankaj Prabhu.
Yeah, Hare Krishna Prabhuji, thanks
Hare
for the
Krishna.
very good class. Just one small clarification on this 3-word slide. Slide says the living being who desires, and then modes of material nature is number 2. So our desires are also based on modes of material nature that we inherited, right, from our past karmas, right? Because in somewhere it says everything is done by by modes of material nature, not by us. Is that clear? Is that correct?
Oh, that's a nice question. So even the desires are inherited by the modes. So how can we, even in what sense then are we the doer? Which is true to some degree, you're saying, right? We are born in a certain family. And according to the family we're born in, we get a certain desire. So we are the desire. Yes, but our past desires are what led us to the present modes that we're in.
Yeah.
You see?
Okay.
So still it is the desires, our desires, that are leading us in the trajectory of this material world. And even though we are in a certain mode, we may not be able to have the desire, like Lavanya Mataji was saying, of being a sannyasi, because that's just not cultivated in us. But we always have the desire, the option in which direction we will move. So we may be in the mode of ignorance and born in a family with the mode of ignorance, but we always have the option to go slightly in goodness, right? We won't have the option. So that desire to uplift ourselves, to go closer to Krishna, that is in our hand in every situation, even if it's 1%. But what Krishna's seeing is which direction. And then when he sees the direction, then Krishna helps and he gets us out.
Okay. Oh, thank you, Prabhuji. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you so
So
much.
this is in every situation, no matter how limited our freedom is, we have some freedom. And if we use that freedom correctly, then we don't misuse it, then that is our advancement in Krishna consciousness. That's what we do have in our hands, in our control.
And this freedom is like free will, right? Our free will. Okay, yeah.
That is the meaning of life. So something living has free will. If something has free will, it is living. A stone has no free will. Therefore, it is not living. So that is one thing that Krishna has given us. And we have that.
Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, everyone. Very nice discussion. And we completed chapter 5. So please continue with the homework. And I will continue with the grading this weekend. I need to do some grading. Please send in your homeworks, and we will see you next week. Srila Prabhupada ki.
Jai.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Thank you,
Dandavat
Prabhuji.
Pranam
Hare
Prabhuji.
Krishna.
All
Hare
glories to
Krishna.
Srila Prabhupada.
Thank you.